If Magic 2015 left a bit of a bad taste in your mouth, then Might and Magic Duels of Champions might be just the thing to rectify that. Find out if it is or not in just a second. I'm Josh, and this is what's happening. Might and Magic Duel of Champions is a collectible card game that is more about strategic positioning and planning than anything else. Borrowing heavily from the tactics genre, players are put in charge of a 2x4 grid and tasked with filling it with mighty heroes and monsters. The specifics of the game are a little much to get into here, but there is an excellent tutorial to bring you up to speed. Suffice it to say, there are plenty of card types and abilities that keep the game fresh and exciting. Might and Magic Duels of Champions has genuine and constant sense of progression. You're constantly unlocking new cards or unlocking new puzzles and dealing with brand new features that you haven't realized existed before. It also has a very friendly community from what I've seen. In the early going and the low levels, everybody seems to be ready with a good game at the end and is genuinely very forgiving of misplays and slow to pounce on your mistakes. The constant unlocks are nice, and there are always goals to strive for. In the upper corner is a percentage, and that's going to track your online progress. Now, this can be a little bit of a downer as it ebbs and flows depending on how well you're doing, but when coupled with the constant unlocks, like I was saying, it shows a very definite progression for your in-game character. More than just getting more cards, which definitely plays into how powerful you feel, this percentage and the titles that go along with it will also go a long way to making you feel like you're achieving something while playing this game. The game's mechanics work very well on the iPad. I think that it's one of the better card games, but a couple of things are obviously more for computer controls or PC controls than they are for the iPad. Swiping through menus can get a little tedious, and scrolling through things is borderline impossible. I was really surprised that it works so poorly here. Often you'll be grabbing a card and throwing it around instead of actually moving down the screen as you would intuitively think you would do. You're going to have to actually tap and hold that button as you scroll down to make the screen move. The story seems really good, but I have a couple of problems with it that I don't think's the story's fault. It seems to be really bogged down in details in the mythos of the Might and Magic world that I'm not really familiar with. I haven't spent a whole lot of time playing any of these games, though I have been interested in the series before, and it seems like getting the most out of the story is going to really be dependent on whether or not you've played these types of games or the Might and Magic series in the past. Even so, the story is very well written, almost surprisingly so, and is definitely not tacked on. I think there's a lot of meat to this bone, even if you aren't deeply seated in the Might and Magic mythology. It was an enjoyable story with a couple of surprise twists. Now, you're not going to have any acting or voice acting or anything like that, or even cutscenes for that matter, but the story bits are beautifully told, and the art and everything, as is a huge part of this game, is the card art and all the different art that you're going to come across, really does a great job to convey those kinds of story elements to you. As I said before, the unlock structure is very forgiving. You're going to feel like you're constantly doing things. But one of the things that we had a problem with the Magic 2015 was the pay model. Now, this game, I am very happy to report, has a much more forgiving pay model. I've been playing the game for about a week, and that's been very sporadically while I work on other stuff on the channel. And I've already unlocked almost half of the cards. Now, you can see from this graphic that I'm not quite at half, but they are pretty easy to get. Even the premium cards, and premium in this case does not mean what it did with Magic 2015. It doesn't mean higher tier power level cards. It just means kind of a shiny foil type thing going on there. Those are even easy to get if somewhat sporadic. It is going to take you a little bit of time to get those. My one piece of advice for you would be to save up your wild cards for those rare heroes that you're going to want, because pretty much all the other cards you're going to be able to grind through with gold. And just working through the story campaign gives you a ton of gold. It's going to allow you to open a lot of packs, and it's even going to give you some wild cards, which I think is very forgiving. They really do give you every opportunity to kind of work up and and get those kind of rewards, those kind of card rewards, just through regular play of the game. The campaign difficulty curve, speaking of the campaign, is very steep, but it definitely doesn't feel like a paywall. At no point was I so frustrated that I felt like I had to pour more money into the game. If anything, I felt like the steep curve was very rewarding, and it very much marked my progress in the game so far. I will stress that it's very important to go into your deck every single time you get a new card and swap it out, because that's what's going to allow you to get kind of past those difficulty spikes. It's pretty unforgiving, but it's very rewarding when you do it. The puzzles and everything are a nice touch. They are a little bit more difficult than you might expect them to be, but still pretty easy. Maybe a little too easy, though the later ones are as difficult as you would expect them to be. It's a lot of fun that they added that element in there. Even though there's so few of them, it definitely doesn't feel just tacked on. Overall, this game on the whole is a lot of fun. It's not going to be a huge money pit for you. Like I said, I have enjoyed the game a ton without putting any money into it at all. This is a collectible card game though, so if you are one of those people who gets that kind of OCD, gotta catch 'em all thing, you might see a couple of bucks find their way into this app. But by and large, it's much more forgiving than any of the other card games that we've seen out there. And I think it has a pretty good scope of things to do, even if the online play as far as tournaments go isn't exceedingly deep and wasn't something that really drew me in. The quick matches are more than enough content, and the story mode is actually going to take you hours and hours to complete. So there's a ton of content here for the very low price of free. And there you go, a pretty great little alternative to Magic the Gathering if you're still looking for a collectible card game to whet your appetite this year on the go on your tablet. Thanks a lot for watching, you guys. You know I really appreciate it. Be sure you subscribe so you don't miss 2 weeks from now's, I need to come up with a better way to say that, episode of What's APPenin. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you all then.